This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. Chase Senior hanging out here with you. And as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Hope you're all having a fantastic weekend, and we have another loaded show coming your way. We're going to do a full 2026 roster breakdown for Philadelphia, taking a look at the Eagles players who are going to hit the free agency market. We'll take a look at this roster moving forward and the biggest team needs, in addition to all of the draft picks that Howie Roseman and the Birds have at their disposal. Speaking of all of that, this is just the start of our offseason coverage right here on the channel. We've been covering this Eagles offensive coordinator search, and I have you covered every step of the way during this big offseason for Philadelphia. So make sure you're subscribed, because we'll be breaking down every Eagles roster move and every big story around this football team. Let's begin here by setting the foundation and setting the table for what we're going to get into here on the program. And first, look at the free agents on this Eagles roster. These are the players who are going to be eligible to hit the open market and sign with other teams across the National Football League. First on offense, you have offensive tackle Fred Johnson, who filled in for Lane Johnson this year. Brett Tauth, the interior offensive lineman who can play guard and center. Offensive lineman Matt Pryor played well in 2024 with the Bears at guard, but anytime the Eagles put him in at right tackle, he was so bad they had to move him to the interior. Probably going to be playing elsewhere in 2026. Quarterback Sam Howell, who the Eagles acquired prior to the year to be their QB3. And then you have running back A.J. Dillon. Didn't really do much after the trade of Tank Bigsby, because Bigsby solidified himself as a piece for this team moving forward. And these are some big free agents here at this position, because the Eagles literally don't have any tight ends on the roster going into the offseason. Dallas Goedert, coming off a career year, set the Eagles franchise record for 11 touchdowns, the most for a tight end in a single season in franchise history. Grant Calcaterra also going to hit the open market. So too is Kylan Granson after he signed a one-year contract last offseason. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver 3. I think he plays for another team in 2026. So the Eagles there have a need at wide receiver 3, or maybe wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, depending on what happens with A.J. Brown. Some offseason questions I have, and you see how we phrased it? Say this 10 times fast. Offensive offseason questions. Let's get into it. Who do the Eagles hire as offensive coordinator? I'm not going to do any mock drafts until we know who the Eagles play caller is going to be, because we need to know what type of scheme they're going to run to pinpoint what prospects the Eagles can take. And we're hoping that OC gets Jalen Hurts playing better and more consistent, that he can maximize a DeVonta Smith, A.J. Brown, put them in positions to succeed with some creative route concepts. We hope that OC can get the ground game going once again. Of course, another question. Does A.J. Brown end up getting traded this offseason? Does Lane Johnson come back? And a potential holdup for this offensive coordinator candidate, he probably wants to know, am I going to have A.J. Brown? Am I going to have Lane Johnson? And then lastly, does Howie Roseman rebuild the entire offensive line? Jordan Mailata, highly paid, bad year. Landon Dickerson, highly paid, bad year. Cam Jurgens, you just made him the highest paid center in football last offseason. Awful season. Right guard, Tyler Steen, fine but not dominant. And at right tackle, Lane Johnson. Like, there are question marks all across the offensive line for the Eagles, and I imagine the Eagles' new OC is looking at that as well. Flip the page to the defensive side of the rock. Eagles in a better position here, in my estimation. At least you have Vic Fangio, and you have some young building blocks on that side of the ball. Brandon Graham, he has said that he thinks that he can continue to play. I'm intrigued, honestly, as a vet, one of the best players in franchise history, for him to play defensive end and defensive tackle. Jalen Phillips, one of the more sought-after free agents in this cycle. He could get a massive bag. Azeez Ojulari didn't work out this year. Joshua Uche, good player, but after the Jalen Phillips trade, a non-factor because the Eagles were so deep at edge rusher. Obu Okoronkwo, he tore his, I think, biceps or triceps early on in the season. So that was another depth piece that didn't really work out for the Eagles. Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship. If Christian Parker brings Nakobe Dean and Reed Blankenship to the Dallas Cowboys, I would not be surprised, as he looks to improve that defense and set a culture And then cornerback Adoree Jackson, who was in the doghouse for Eagles fans at the start of the year. Honestly, as the season progressed, I thought he was fine, but I think the Eagles can stand for an upgrade there at outside corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell while keeping Cooper DeJean in the slot. To the specialists, punters are people too. Braden Mann, I think it's important for the Eagles to bring him back. Last couple of years, he's been one of the best punters in football. His average per punt last season, 50 yards. And with the coffin corners, punts inside the 20, being able to flip the field after the Eagles led the NFL in 3 and outs, Braden Mann was like a low-key MVP for this team. And I think, and I hope that he is back with the Birds in 2026 as well. Some defensive offseason questions for the Birds here. Does Howie Roseman bring back Jaelan Phillips? If he leaves, Eagles gave up a 3rd-round pick for him. They'll get a 3rd-round compensatory pick back in return. Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship, important to this Eagles defense on the field and in the locker room. Does Howie Roseman hand out extensions to homegrown players like Jalen Carter, like Jordan Davis, like Nolan Smith? All those players, contract extension eligible. And the Eagles, they have to fulfill a coaching vacancy right now at defensive backs coach and at defensive pass game coordinator because Christian Parker, rising star, taking that defensive coordinator job at the Dallas Cowboys to replace Matt Eberflus. Let me know, which Eagles free agent do the Birds need to bring back? Who do you want to see back in Midnight Green next year? Drop me a name or names down below in the comment section. Coming up next, just around the corner, we'll continue to look at this Eagles roster, biggest team needs, what draft picks do the Birds have as well. It's all coming up here in a moment. Continue to hang out with us and be a real one. But first, today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, made possible thanks to our friends at Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next year. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Find your community on Prize Picks with the new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. New feature alert, Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out of those winnings before the game even finishes. 4-pick power play for Championship Sunday. We've got Denver, New England on the AFC side. Let's roll with Courtland Sutton, Stephon Diggs, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. And then on the NFC side of the bracket, Seattle, Rams, NFC West rivalry, Kenneth Walker and Puka Nacua, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. It's as easy as that, ladies and gentlemen. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So as far as this Eagles 2026 roster goes, the quarterbacks, Philadelphia now has 2. Jalen Hurts at QB1, Tanner McKee, QB2. Something to look out for. This is a very thin quarterback draft class for the 2026 draft. Fernando Mendoza, QB1. After him, who's QB2? Dante Moore, back to Oregon. Lenora Sellers, going back to school as well. Ty Simpson, a lot of question marks around him. He's probably QB2 in this class. Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, climbing up draft boards. Cade Klubnik is up there. That's not great. So, because this quarterback class is thinner, teams who need a quarterback right off the rip, Miami Dolphins, Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals, New York Jets, they're looking for a QB. So could the Eagles trade Tanner McKee if they get a pretty good offer? 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick. Look out for that. And if that happens, look out for the Eagles to be active for a backup quarterback in free agency, perhaps in the draft. Eagles pretty set at running back going into next year. Saquon Barkley, Tank Bigsby, Will Shipley. Tank Bigsby, what a story he was. He didn't get the football enough. Thank you, Kevin Patullo. Will Shipley, not a bad return guy. 3rd downs. Eagles called his number a couple times so that he could catch passes out of the backfield. I thought both those backups were underutilized. For Saquon Barkley, to me, he looked fine. He was fast. He was physical. He had explosion. He was dynamic. We saw some of the explosive runs, but not enough of them. For me, the Eagles' lack of running attack this past year was not due to Saquon Barkley being washed, the Madden curse. It was the offensive line. His yards before contact all year were down between a yard and a yard and a half. Why is that? This offensive line, they are getting their asses kicked along the interior. That wide receiver, A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Darius Cooper, Johnny Wilson. Will A.J. Brown be on the team next season? That is a valid question. A lot of people around the NFL not sure if A.J. is going to get traded or be on this Eagles team. A lot of NFL insiders think he's going to get dealt. Front office executives, NFL scouts, they think that he's going to get traded. Brandon Graham was on his podcast the other day. He thinks that A.J. is coming back. I'll be at the Super Bowl in San Francisco in 2 weeks. I'll be at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis here in a couple of weeks at the end of February into March. I'll ask about this. I'll do our due diligence here. You know who the Eagles missed a little bit this year? Johnny Wilson as a blocking wideout, 6'5", 6'6". And instead of having him on the field, the Eagles had a lot of Grant Calcaterra. He can't block. At tight end, major questions going into next year. Quinyon Mitchell would be a dream out of Oregon. He's a freak, young, probably cheaper than Dallas Goedert and that contract that he might get next year. He's a great pass catcher, awesome athlete. He can pick up yards after the catch. But with where the Eagles are drafting, 23rd, I'm not sure Mitchell is going to be available. Maybe Goedert comes back after his 11-touchdown season. Him and Jalen Hurts have a great rapport. Mailata, I think he is actually on the roster for next year, but the Eagles were more so using him at fullback. Will they continue to use him at fullback, or will they try to develop him at tight end? I worry about the hands. I worry about the athleticism at tight end. I'd be intrigued at seeing him get some more run at fullback. But the Eagles also added Carson Steele to the team from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's on the 90-man. We're more so looking at the initial 53 here. Carson Steele could be the fullback for this team looking ahead, and that also is offensive coordinator dependent. Along the offensive line, Jordan Mailata left tackle, Landon Dickerson left guard, Cam Jurgens center, Tyler Steen right guard, Lane Johnson right tackle. Eagles could run it back with that starting five. I don't think they can. I think they need to make changes and get better there. I know that Dickerson and Jurgens were hurt all season. Do the Eagles have a solution for that? If so, act on it this offseason. I think you need to upgrade at right guard. Bring back Mekhi Becton. He was a mauler. Tyler Steen is not. Does Lane Johnson want to continue to play? We'll see. Jordan Mailata said that he was tired coming off that year last year when the Eagles and Saquon Barkley ran for well over 2,000 yards. Well, he got bounced in the wild card round. Now you have a longer offseason. Does that allow him to recover? Elsewhere along this offensive line, the draft picks for the Eagles in 2025, after some stellar classes from Howie Roseman, really didn't do all that much. Jihaad Campbell, Andrew Mukuba, I think they're good players moving ahead. Outside of that, a lot of unknowns, and that includes 3 sixth-round offensive linemen. Myles Hinton, offensive tackle. Cameron Williams can play tackle and guard. Drew Kendall, center. Could Drew Kendall be the center in 2026? We will certainly see. I want to see these young offensive linemen develop, and Jeff Stoutland has his work cut out for him to develop those players, but to get the veterans playing well once again, and Stoutland is also the run game coordinator. Defensive tackles. This is probably the deepest defensive tackle room in the NFL. Moro Ojomo, breakout year as I predicted. Jalen Carter, hurt, but we know that he can be one of the more disruptive players in football. Jordan Davis, career year. I think the Eagles have to sign him to a contract extension. As valuable as he was on the field, maybe more valuable in the locker room. Eagles care about those things. Ty Robinson, going into year 2. Going to need to add some playing weight, get a little bit stronger. Byron Young showed some flashes, not a bad depth piece there. At edge rusher, not a lot of depth. Look, the only 2 players right now on like the initial 53, if we're not looking at the entire 90-man, who are set to be on this team next year for sure, bona fide, solidified, Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt, Obu Okoronkwo, Azeez Ojulari, Jalen Phillips. They're all free agents. Josh Uche also signed a 1-year deal. So I love Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt as young players, very important to what the Eagles do. They're good against the run. They're good at getting after the quarterback, although I was disappointed with the entire pass rush against the Niners in the wild card round. But Howie, he's got some work to do at pass rusher this upcoming offseason. BG, also a free agent, now that I think about it as well, and we talked about that earlier. Why would we miss it? Linebackers, off-ball guys, Zack Baun, Jihaad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Smael Mondon. I don't think the Eagles bring back Nakobe Dean. Frankly, I don't think they should. He's going to be really expensive, and he's missed a lot of time. Plus, Axeman Jr., he's a baller. He could play. Zack Baun, not as good as he was last year when he's a first-team All-Pro finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, but he was still really good. I worry a little bit about the lateral quickness, but he was dealing with a knee injury all year. Jihaad Campbell was named to the Pro Football Writers of America All-Pro Rookie Team, and I think that he can continue to develop. Him and Trotter Jr. are reasons why the Eagles should let Nakobe Dean go. And Smael Mondon, pretty good rookie special team season for him. At cornerback, you've got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jakorian Bennett, Mr. Handsy and Flagman, Kelee Ringo, McWilliams, Michael Carter. The Michael Carter trade didn't pay a lot of dividends for the Eagles. Do the Eagles try to cross-train him at safety because they don't have a lot of options there going into the offseason? What I like about the Eagles' cornerback spot, you have the foundational pillars. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, first-team All-Pros in 2025. They lose Christian Parker, who helped their development a lot. How do they fare? At the very least, though, you know that they're two of the top players at their respective positions in football, but I think the Eagles do need to address outside corner opposite of Quinyon. At the safety position, Andrew Mukuba, Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown isn't a starter in this league. He's more of a special teams guy. Doesn't have feel, doesn't have instincts, doesn't have a good play speed. Andrew Mukuba, I do like some of the things that he did this past year. Suffered that broken ankle against the Cowboys. He's expected to be back fully for offseason activities, and I do think that he can continue to get better. At kicker, got Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott the last 2 years has not been great. This past year, 20 of 27 on his field goal makes and attempts. It was the lowest field goal percentage of his career. He is under contract because he's the second highest paid kicker in the NFL. I know a lot of Eagles fans want the Eagles to move off of Jake Elliott. If they do so, it's a large dead cap number for a kicker. I'm not sure Howie Roseman wants to have to eat that. They might give him one more year. As far as my Eagles offseason needs, number one, offensive coordinator. Got to get that spot right. It's a big one going into next season to get this offense humming again. Offensive tackle, interior offensive line, pass rusher, cornerback, safety, wide receiver, tight end. Again, you can throw kicker on there, but that's a lot of dead money for a special teams position. Eagles 2026 draft picks. Howie Roseman has a lot of flexibility here. A lot of top 100 picks, a lot of picks inside the first 5 rounds. In fact, the Eagles don't have a 6th or 7th round pick. When draft weekend comes around, you know that Howie's going to make a bevy of trades. I like where the Eagles are at from a draft picks standpoint. They can stand pat for the most part, and they have some really good selections. But when you have ample draft capital and when the gun is loaded up, so to speak, with a lot of ammunition, you can use those trades to also move up the draft board if there's a player who you want to go scoop. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When I say we're here for you every step of the offseason, I mean it. I would never lie to the real ones and the legends who watch this show, so keep it locked right here.